You didn't just stumble across this message. This found you because it was meant for you. And if you're reading this right now, let me say it plain. You are not average. You are not here by accident. You are here because you're chosen. Because even when life hit hard, you didn't let it make you hard. You stayed kind in a world that gave you every reason to shut down. And that right there, that's power. Most people will never understand. This isn't just motivation. This is confirmation. Proof that heaven saw everything. The silent nights, the quiet strength, the moments you gave when you had nothing left. While others were clapping back, you were holding your peace. While they were turning cold, you kept showing up with love. That's not weakness. That's spiritual strength on full display. So take a breath. You're not behind. You're not forgotten. You're being positioned. And the shift you've been praying for, it's already in motion. Because chosen one, the fact that you stayed kind, is the very reason you're about to rise. Keep reading. This message was written with you in mind. There's a reason quiet endurance speaks louder than fury ever could. This message is not just for the curious. It's a coded reminder, a spiritual compass pointing only to those who've kept their hearts tender through seasons that tried to harden them. Before we begin unfolding this layered truth, take a moment to engage. This is not entertainment. It's alignment. A message reserved for those who stayed rooted in empathy while the ground beneath them trembled with betrayal and silence. If this resonates like a pulse in your chest, mark the moment with the number 55 in the comments. That number isn't decoration, it's a rhythm, a signal, a doorway into understanding the unseen forces that guarded your journey. It tells the universe, I carried grace when I could have carried grudges. Most will scroll, few will stay. But the ones who do know that mercy is not a flaw, and that loving without return is still a form of power. By the time this message reaches its final breath, you'll feel something shift, not because of the words alone, but because of what they unlock. A deeper clarity will rise like mist after rainfall. That every time you chose patience over pride, the universe recorded it. This is not just something to consume, it's something to carry. Come back to it when you need to remember who you are beneath the noise. You didn't fall behind when you chose gentleness. That was the moment you moved ahead. Let's take the first step. If your heart overflows with divine love, now is the moment to let it shine. Click the super thank you button on YouTube and give $50 or more to help carry God's light to others. Your gift will bless not only your life, but countless others. You are part of His sacred plan. Your kindness may be the answer to someone's prayer. Share your blessings and honor His kingdom. May His grace guide you always. Not everyone walks through fire and comes out holding water. The tenderness you carried wasn't a flaw. It was intention in motion, not shaped to echo the noise around you, but designed to disrupt it with quiet depth. You weren't born to mimic the world's cold rhythm. You were meant to slow it down, to bring warmth into places where even breath felt sharp. This softness in you, it was forged, not gifted. It took endurance. It took clarity. It was the signature of one who walks with invisible purpose. This world often mistakes cruelty for courage and thunder for truth. It praises those who push forward with disregard, confusing dominance with direction. But you were carved differently, moved by a pulse that didn't chase applause, built with patience that couldn't be taught. And even when rejection came dressed in daily encounters, you remained steady, open-hearted in rooms built for emotional distance, present in places that rewarded absence. Every time you extended grace, Where bitterness would have made more sense, something eternal took note. And those choices, they cost more than most will ever realize. You forgave without the closure. You extended understanding to those who fed you silence. You offered loyalty where convenience reigned. And through it all, your spirit refused to harden. Not out of ignorance, but out of divine discernment. You weren't trying to win their game. You were answering to a deeper call. Make your impact eternal. Join now and be a light in someone's darkness. Silence wasn't your surrender. It was your strategy. You didn't engage in every battle because you saw beyond the noise. Not every slight deserved your energy. Not every challenge was yours to fight. And yes, it made the path lonelier. Yes, it made you doubt your role in a world so easily swayed by shadows. But what felt like isolation was actually preservation. You weren't being cast aside. You were being shaped in stillness. You kept showing up with unshaken generosity. You kept choosing empathy in a system that dismissed it. And no, it didn't come without ache. It bruised you. It wore you down. But it didn't break you. Instead, it marked you for something greater. Every unseen sacrifice, every unnoticed kindness, it all echoed beyond what eyes could measure. What kept you going wasn't your own flame. It was something eternal burning within you. A sacred force that reignited you each time the weight got too much. You didn't carry softness because you couldn't bear the fight. You carried it because you had already won the one within. While many built their fortresses from bitterness, you built a sanctuary from your scars. And that quiet resolve is what prepared you. That is what made you different. That is what lifted you beyond what the surface could explain. The pain didn't just leave you standing, it left you shining. Not by accident, but by design. Not surviving, but transformed. There's a quiet kind of strength that doesn't ask to be noticed. It simply endures. Carved not in comfort, but in invisible storms no one else could see. Behind every ordinary moment was a silent ache carried with grace. Smiles stretched across faces that held back floods. Laughter shared while the soul whispered questions into the silence. Still, the presence remained steady, reliable, gentle. Not because everything was fine, but because abandoning love was never an option. What looked like ease was actually endurance in disguise. The steadiness wasn't born from peace. It was forged while walking through inner landscapes scorched by uncertainty. Still, the voice remained soft. Still, the hands remained open. That gentleness wasn't naive. It was disciplined. A choice made again and again when everything else pointed toward shutting down. And it didn't come without a cost. That choice, quiet and constant, created distance. Not everyone could understand the depth it required to stay kind in the fire. It wasn't about approval. It wasn't about being liked. It was about refusing to let pain rewrite the blueprint of the soul. While others were quick to retaliate, to harden, to dismiss, there was a decision made to respond differently, to stay in alignment with something higher than public opinion, to remain rooted while everything above was shifting. And that restraint, that refusal to be pulled into the same chaos, wasn't weakness. It was mastery. Silent strength isn't loud for a reason. It doesn't shout its virtue, but it never breaks character. When hearts turned cold, it stayed warm. When words could have cut deep, it chose quiet resolve. And yes, that led to lonely stretches, misunderstood motives, being seen as passive or too soft. But what was invisible to the crowd was clear to the unseen realm. Every time kindness was chosen over reaction, the soul rose higher, offering hope while feeling empty, showing up when it would have been easier to disappear, lifting others with words never received back. And yet, no breakdown, only breakthroughs, layered and slow. A spirit kept pure, not by chance, but by constant renewal. Pride swallowed without recognition, bitterness uprooted before it could grow, not out of weakness, but out of reverence for something deeper than revenge. This wasn't a test of survival. It was a path of transformation. Real growth happens when no one's watching. Real grace is built in moments that never make it to stories. What was cultivated in silence is about to echo in places that never knew your name. The strength built in shadows is preparing to emerge, not in vengeance, but in fullness, not to prove anything, but to live in the clarity that comes from being unshaken. The weight behind the smile was never wasted energy. It was sacred preservation, a quiet blooming in places barren of compassion, a private devotion to remain whole in a fragmented world. And now, that long-hidden radiance is ready to rise, not because anything was owed, but because what was sown in humility is ready to blossom in power, not for applause, but for purpose. Not many can comprehend the silent discipline it took to keep rising above. There were moments you stood at the crossroads of reaction and restraint, fully aware of what you could say, of what you could reveal, but you chose stillness, you chose peace. You didn't act because you were powerless. You acted with power few recognize, the kind that doesn't need to prove itself, the kind that comes from alignment, not approval. If your heart overflows with divine love, now is the moment to let it shine. Click the super thank you button on YouTube and give $100 or more to help carry God's light to others. Your gift will bless not only your life, but countless others. You are part of His sacred plan. Your kindness may be the answer to someone's prayer. Share your blessings and honor His kingdom. May His grace guide you always. It wasn't about winning the moment. It was about winning yourself. While others ran on impulse, you operated from a deeper clarity. When others struck with ego, you responded from soul. Not once, but often. And every time you stepped back instead of striking back, something in the unseen realms moved on your behalf. While the world glorifies retaliation, you lived a different kind of boldness, one that required more courage than confrontation ever could. You extended peace without demand. You gave closure without condition. You didn't mirror the fractures that tried to cut into your light. You became the space that absorbed them and stayed whole. Where many would have sharpened their words, you sharpened your awareness. And yes, it cost you. Not everyone saw the price, but the silence you kept wasn't silence at all. It was sacred ground being guarded. Each time you could have crumbled into bitterness and chose to transmute that pain into presence, a seed was planted in the invisible. These moments weren't wasted. They were weighted with meaning. You weren't missing your moment. You were multiplying it. Not through noise, but through a quiet that builds legacy. Restraint, when rooted in purpose, becomes strength. No storm can rattle. It's not about who noticed. It's about what was built inside you while no one was looking. While others tried to control outcomes, you surrendered outcomes to something larger and trusted that clarity would arrive in time. You did not chase validation. You stayed rooted in what was right. And though it felt like you were being overlooked, you were actually being refined. The moments you wanted to defend your name, but chose silence instead, they didn't go unseen. Every time your heart leaned toward compassion, when hurt demanded vengeance, something within you stretched upward. That's the strength the surface never shows. Make your impact eternal. Join now and be a light in someone's darkness. You weren't chosen for how well you fight back. You were chosen for how consistently you rise without losing who you are. That rise was slow. It was quiet, but it was steady. Now, the echoes of your choices are beginning to shake the atmosphere. What was built in secret will bloom in full view, not to prove anything, but to fulfill everything. So let the noise say you were soft. Let the world think you stayed silent because you didn't know what to say. The truth is, you knew exactly what mattered, and you honored that over everything else. That's what makes your story different. Not just the victories, but the invisible roads you took to get there. And the reward, it's already on the horizon, etched not in applause, but in purpose. There's a unique kind of ache that comes with feeling everything too deeply. It's the silent wondering of why certain wounds cut so sharp, why goodbyes echo louder in your chest than they seem to in anyone else's. You stood in the same storms others walked through, untouched, yet you were the one left, carrying shards of what no longer remained. And even as they moved on unbothered, you stayed behind, trying to make sense of the silence. You noticed how some could sever ties like they meant nothing. Their detachment seemed effortless. You tried to do the same, to wrap your heart in layers of indifference, to match the coldness around you. But something in you resisted. No matter how much you longed for armor, you were built as an open gate. And though you wrestled with your tenderness, it kept pulling you back to warmth, to hope, to care. It felt like too much, like a burden you didn't ask for. There were nights you wished you could be numb, days where you questioned why you weren't wired for distance, why you carried stories no one else seemed to feel. But those longings weren't signs of weakness, they were signs of exhaustion. And even then, at your most depleted, your essence remained. Not because you didn't suffer, but because you were formed with something deeper than defense, something sacred. Your sensitivity isn't an error to correct, it's an imprint of your purpose. You weren't made to reflect the indifference around you. You were made to shift the atmosphere. While others turned off their hearts to avoid the weight, you carried it with both hands, even when it trembled. That ache in your chest was never random. It came with a responsibility only certain souls are asked to bear. There are those who witness pain and those who absorb it. You were the latter, and though it nearly crushed you, it never compromised you. Your pain refined your perception. Your ability to feel deeply didn't diminish you. It expanded your capacity to hold space for others. That wasn't punishment, it was preparation. You will see it one day soon. The very qualities you once tried to bury are the ones that will open the doors no strategy ever could. What seemed like emotional overload was actually spiritual sensitivity, a compass disguised as burden. And in time, what the world overlooked will be the very thing that makes room for your voice. Your kindness was never a flaw in need of fixing. It was the root of something holy growing underground. While many built fortresses to survive, you became a well others will one day draw from. Let them mislabel your softness. Let them misunderstand your stillness. Because what once felt like a fault line will soon be revealed as a foundation. The parts of you that felt misplaced were actually rare. The very gentleness that left you feeling unguarded will be the reason others are healed in your presence. It was never a mistake, it was a mission. And soon, the places you thought your heart would never be welcome will call you forward. Not because you changed, but because you remained. It takes a rare kind of soul to remain soft in seasons designed to harden you, to carry clarity in confusion, to choose goodness when resentment was within reach. There's something powerful about being steady when chaos demands a reaction. That's not hesitation. That's preparation. That's the unseen training of someone being shaped for something beyond public understanding. What looks like quiet endurance is actually proof of inner mastery. Authority doesn't begin with noise. It begins with integrity. Real influence isn't born in spotlights. It's formed in hidden places, where you choose restraint over retaliation, grace over ego, stillness over impulse. Many want to lead, but few allow themselves to be refined in the dark. Many desire the outcome, but resist the pruning. But you allowed life to press you without losing what mattered most. While others were chasing recognition, you chose discipline. While they collected followers, you collected wisdom. That's why doors are beginning to shift open for you now. Doors no one else could open, no matter how loudly they knocked. Because what was growing in your silence was too sacred to be rushed. Tenderness in a hardened world is not fragility. It's a defiance against decay. Remaining pure in a system built on performance is a rebellion rooted in spirit. It costs nothing to react with bitterness, but it takes deep strength to answer insult with dignity, to move forward without dragging anyone through the mud behind you. The results you're about to step into are not just external. Yes, connections will come. Yes, your name will echo in places you never applied to. But the truest reward is internal. You kept your wholeness. You didn't abandon your center for shallow victory. You didn't lose your peace while chasing progress. You stayed rooted when compromise could have given you shortcuts. Now you're walking into clarity with nothing broken inside. Not because you avoided pain, but because you allowed it to shape you without shrinking you. And that's why your rise won't be just a moment. It will carry momentum. Not because you're the loudest, but because you've been the most faithful. You were tested in silence and stayed anchored without an audience. Now is the moment where alignment becomes access. What you've preserved in private is becoming purpose in public. You won't just be visible. You'll carry presence. You won't just speak. You'll shift spaces. What looked like delay was actually direction. What felt like stillness was sacred setup. People may not understand how you remained kind through betrayal. They may never know what you endured behind your patience, but they will see the results of what your consistency built. Your compassion wasn't a detour. It was the exact road leading to your assignment. And that's the difference. What others overlooked is becoming the foundation of your influence. So don't regret your gentleness. Don't question your mercy. They were not mistakes. They were your message forming. And now, the space you're stepping into will make sense of all the pain you carried with grace. This is not just a turning point. This is legacy being born through light you never let go of. There's a strength in you that never needed a spotlight to be real. There was a time when you watched others bend the rules, step over truth, and still climb higher, louder, faster. It felt like your quiet integrity was invisible, like the ones who played dirty kept winning while you stayed stuck behind the curtain. You held your breath, wondering if honor still held value in a world addicted to shortcuts. But something deeper was unfolding, beyond what eyes could track. While some built their success on fragile foundations, you were being rooted. While others masked flaws with charm, you were letting your soul be sharpened in solitude. You chose alignment over applause, depth over display. You didn't take the bait. And now, the shift is beginning. Not because you manipulated it, but because timing is being realigned in your favor. This reversal has nothing to do with ego and everything to do with essence. You didn't keep your peace to look noble. You kept it because your spirit refused to lose its clarity. The grace you showed in the shadows is now echoing in ways that cannot be ignored. What they rushed to grab, they will struggle to hold. What you quietly nurtured is now gaining unstoppable momentum. You were never passed over. You were being preserved. The ones who questioned your gentleness will soon witness the weight it carried. The same mouths that called you too soft will fall silent at the sight of your emergence. But your rise won't come with noise. It will come with stillness that speaks for itself. Because you didn't build this by proving your worth. You built it by protecting your peace. If your heart overflows with divine love, now is the moment to let it shine. Click the super thank you button on YouTube and give $50 or more to help carry God's light to others. Your gift will bless not only your life, but countless others. You are part of His sacred plan. Your kindness may be the answer to someone's prayer. Share your blessings and honor His kingdom. May His grace guide you always. There's no need to match the energy that once tried to break you. The transformation is happening without confrontation. No grand announcements, just presence, just timing, just purpose aligning. This is not revenge, it's revelation. Not retaliation, it's reward. The spotlight is finding you, not because you chased it, but because light always returns to its source. Your consistency in the quiet is becoming your credibility in the visible. And now, everything you endured in secret is about to manifest as confirmation. They won't understand how you made it without compromising. But they were never meant to. What you carried in the silence, the prayers, the principles, the tears no one knew about, that's what's opening the way forward. Let them think you lost. Let them wonder. What's unfolding now isn't for validation. It's for impact. Not to shame those who counted you out, but to lift those who are still learning how to stay kind when it costs them everything. You're not rising to prove anything. You're rising because your purity was the path. And now, it's become the platform. So don't flinch. Don't look back. The turning isn't loud, but it is lasting. It's not forced, but it is final. And it's not about getting even. It's about being established. You never had to harden to be strong. You only had to stay rooted long enough for grace to catch up. And now, it has. Make your impact eternal. Join now and be a light in someone's darkness. There's something sacred about the way you made it through. Not by overpowering others, not by outshouting, outshining, or outmaneuvering. You didn't push your way forward. You held your ground in stillness. You didn't play by the rules of survival of the loudest. You thrived by staying rooted in what the world often ignores: integrity. While others twisted narratives, you chose transparency. While bitterness was the easy option, you moved through pain with a steady pulse of grace. When retaliation stood at the door dressed as justice, you turned the lock and walked away. And in doing so, you didn't win the fight. You outgrew the war. The true victory wasn't measured in what changed around you, but in what remained unchanged within you. You never traded your essence to fit the game. You held on to your softness, your sincerity, your stillness. You kept your hands clean and your spirit intact. And that is the kind of triumph no spotlight can replicate. What seemed invisible to the world was deeply visible in the unseen. Every moment you chose patience over performance, compassion over calculation. You were being fortified. What didn't break you built you, not louder, but deeper. And that depth, it's become your foundation. This wasn't about just making it through. This was transformation at the cellular level, a shift in how you show up, a clarity in how you love, a wisdom in how you move. What was once painful is now purposeful. What once felt like loss is now revealed as alignment.